Hello, welcome to the channel. My name is Cliff Steinkraus and I am the creator of Damgart. So I wanted to talk a little bit today about I guess my journey in Pacific Northwest boots and the reason that I created Damgart. So my journey into work boots in general, over the years when I was younger, it was fairly spotty. If I was working out in the field or out in the yard, when I was living in the Midwest, I'd grab my pair of Red Wings, the logger boots, and I'd head out and do some work. And that was pretty much the extent of it. As I got older, I started running into some medical issues. And it really started back in the late 90s. I was working at a place where I was the manager, and as the manager, I had to make sure that the product got checked in properly. And this particular place had 3 levels. It had a very small basement, it had a main level, then it had an upper mezzanine, which was basically where the product was stored. Now there were some on the main floor, but the upper floor is where a lot of it, a lot of the product was stored. So the trucks would come in a couple times a week. On this particular day, the product came in. The technicians put the product away, and instead of taking a product up through the gate on the upper mezzanine, they got the bright idea of taking one of the grates out of the floor. It had steel grates, and I want to say these grates were probably 3x3, and it was the like a grid pattern. And they took them out, or took one of them out, and was throwing the product up through one of those holes in the floor. Well, they didn't tell me, so I went upstairs and I started walking down one of the aisles, and I was looking at the paper instead of looking at the floor, and I stepped through that hole. And on the way down, I hit the edge of the hole, bit through my tongue, and landed on my feet. And biting through your tongue is no fun, first of all. Secondly, it destroyed my L5-S1 disc. So at first, I knew that my back sustained some sort of an injury, but it just felt like it was just muscular. But after, about 10 years later, I finally had to have a spinal fusion done. And after that, recovery was, it was all right. I wouldn't want to go through it again, but, based on the pain that I was feeling at the time, it was probably the best decision I could have made. And then we fast forward to 2012, when I was working at a dealership, and I was walking back to the shop area. The service desks, or the service advisors sat, was in the path on the way back to the garage. So a car would come in, it would stop at where the service advisors were, and then you would just drive it right on back into the shop. Well, I left my desk, I went to go check on a customer's vehicle, and I have to mention that the floor was green, because that's why I didn't see what had happened. But a technician was doing a coolant service on a vehicle and had drained the coolant, but there was no cone or no flags or anything that were put up, and I did not see the coolant that was in the aisle. So as I'm walking down, I step on it and I slide, and what they thought originally was a sprain, 8 weeks later they did a MRI and found that the upper tibia plateau was crushed. So that's it's not a good injury to have. And when the orthopedic surgeon looked at it and saw the x-ray, he said, "You've been on your feet for 8 weeks. If I would have known this to begin with, you would have been off your feet and not doing physical therapy." So I took about 1.5 to 2 years, and I finally got to the point where I could walk without a cane. It took quite a little while for it to heal up. And then a couple of years ago, I went in to see a doctor, and actually went in to see a chiropractor. I went to like a whole health clinic type of thing. And she took x-rays. And when I went in and talked to her to get the results, she said, under normal conditions, well, anytime you see a doctor and they lead with that, it's what's following is probably not good. And come to find out, I have a disease that is called it's DISH is the acronym, and it's diffuse idiopathic skeletal hyperostosis. And so basically what happens is the ligament that's on the front of the spine that stabilizes the spine, it calcifies and it turns to bone. So all but probably 2, maybe 3 of my neck vertebrae are fused, and my back, my thoracic spine is completely fused. And my lumbar spine, I've got 3 vertebrae that are free. So my back is, for the most part, fused up. So it creates muscle pain and stuff like that, because when I rotate or when I turn or rotate my torso, the spine no longer rotates, at least as it should. So the muscles are having to do extra work, and they get stretched out, they get strained, and so on and so forth, and it's no fun. But it is what it is, and I know a gentleman that has the same disease that I do, and he can't, in order to turn his head, he has to turn his whole body. He can't turn his neck like I can. So I feel fairly fortunate in that area. Anyway, I was getting a lot of pain in my arch and in my lower back, muscular pain, my knees, so on and so forth. And so I was looking for something that might provide a little bit more arch support. And I started looking at boots, and I started out with just the traditional stuff that I'd always been used to, Red Wing. I got a pair of Chippewas, and they were better than a tennis shoe, but still wasn't the arch support that I really felt that I needed. Now I could spend, $400 or $500 on inserts, orthotic inserts, but I wanted to see if there was something else that, that I could rely on versus that. And I had heard about the Pacific Northwest boots. And at first, when I was first looking at them, I was like, there is no way that I'm going to spend $600 or $700 on a pair of boots. That just ain't going to happen. I'm just not going to do it. That's way too much money. So I don't know, I guess I was just dealing with it long enough, and I was tired of having to, deal with the pain and whatnot, that I just finally decided to do it. There was a sale, and a big sale, and I ended up getting a Westco. And I tried that, and it felt pretty good. And then I thought, well, what else is out there? So I tried some other brands, and I finally landed on Whites and Franks, and both of them make a great boot. I got plenty of Franks. I got a lot of them, and they do know how to make a good boot. And then I started buying some Whites as well, because the arch is a little bit different in the Whites than the Franks, and it's the way that they're built up. The last is the same. So I think there's a little bit of difference depending on what source you refer to. Some will say there's no difference. Some will say there's a little bit of difference. Whites, in an interview they did with Stitch Down, said that there is a small difference between the two last, between the 55 and the 4811.
Some things arrive in a box. What they carry is revealed only with time. Built by hand. Chosen for work. Waiting for a life neither of us could see. The first miles were work miles, the kind that teach leather your name. They carried me home the day our world became larger than the two of us. First steps became long walks. Long days became years before we noticed. Some companions leave too soon. The miles they shared remain with us. Time leaves marks. Care does not erase them. It helps the good things endure. They stood with me for her milestones and carried me beside her toward the next. Built for the work, built for the years. A Damgart film.
And I have x-rays that show that there is a difference between the two. But anyway, so I've worn every manufacturer but Nick's, and that's changing. So I'm going to be ordering a pair of Nick's here pretty soon, or a couple of days actually, and looking forward to that. I started Damgart because I spent a lot of money looking for the right boot. I mean, a lot of money. A lot of time, a lot of effort, trying different things out, seeing how it worked, seeing how it felt, so on and so forth. And my goal was to see if I could help others in shortening that amount of time and saving some money by, avoiding the mistakes that I made. Now, there are 3 manufacturers that I support, either based on personal experience or based on experience that I have read about from others. And actually there's 4, but we're just going to talk about the 3 that are in Spokane, because the 2 of them have a direct connection to the other. And the companies I'm talking about are White's, Frank's, and Nick's. And White's has been around since, if you haven't read the story or heard about the story, it's pretty darn interesting. They've been around since like 1853. And the family come over from England originally. And they ended up, started in the Northeast, and then ended up in Virginia, and then finally moved out west to Idaho, and then finally to Spokane. Nick's was the next one that was in line, and Nick worked for White's, and he left and started his own repair business. And he founded Nick's Boots. And Nick's operated for quite some time, and for Nick's as well. And he left, and I think he was absent for less than a year from Nick's, and decided to go ahead and start up his own company called Frank's. And they all use the White's process, the design, and it's a process that's been tried and true for quite some time. I mean, they've been using the 4811 since 1926, so it's 100 years that last has been in existence. And the 55 came out in the 30s. Both of them are very comfortable. Like I said, I've got x-rays, and I'll show them here. And what it does is it raises your arch and your heel so that it forces your pelvis forward and your shoulders back. So it helps with your posture, for one, and secondly, it distributes the weight of your body over the center of the arch so that your foot is properly distributing that weight over a much wider area. Instead of being like on the ball of your foot or on the heel of your foot, it spreads out over the entire foot where it's centered on the arch. And that makes a huge difference. It does for someone that has back and knee problems and neck problems, because if your feet are not properly distributing the weight, then everything else is going to be off. The whole geometry of your skeleton is going to be, canted or however you want to describe it. It's not stable. So, and your muscles are having to do a lot more work to try and keep your body erect like it should be. So when you get in a proper fitting pair of boots that has that weight distributed over the arch, your body gets less tired, especially in the knees, the ankles, so on and so forth. It really is a godsend, or at least it was for me. So, like I said, I mean, the three manufacturers that I put confidence in are the three that are in Spokane. I do like Wesco. I like the design of Wesco. Their arch is not built up as high as the other three, from what I understand. I don't have personal experience on Nick's just yet, but like I said, that's changing. So, and I'm looking forward to that part of my journey where I can experience another manufacturer. And I do support American manufacturing as well. So those three do build their product here in the United States with American workers using American materials. Now, there is one manufacturer that I've left out. I just personally didn't have a great experience with them. And they've constantly kind of like scaled things back a little bit. They would probably speak different on that, and I'll let everyone come to their own conclusion on what they're doing as far as their building processes. But it's not tied to, it's loosely tied to the method that Otto White started when he come up with the 4811 last. But I just feel a lot more comfortable dealing with the other three, and that's what I will continue to do. So I like answering questions for people. Hit me up if you have any questions about Pacific Northwest boots. I can give you a personal experience as to how it worked for me and how it took care of pain issues. And like I said, I don't have the foot pain, the knee pain, or the back pain that I did previously, trying, because I was in an endless search of trying to find something. I went through, I don't know how many different hiking boots. And hiking boots, I do own some, but they're just a short-term deal. I don't wear them all the time. If I'm not hiking and wearing a hiking boot, regardless of what I'm doing, whether I'm working or taking a trip to the store, I'm wearing a pair of Pacific Northwest boots. That's what I wear all the time. And it has really changed my life as far as making it more pain-free and easier. So the other thing I'll touch on is that Damgart is delving into the AI spectrum. And I know, several people have voiced their displeasure with that. And it's not meant to be anything. It's not going to be a replacement for live video. It just isn't. But it's a way for me to do some education of a personal experience from a point of view that I don't have to go out and spend a lot of money to hire people to do the speaking parts, and you're not just seeing me all the time. And I'm able to use different scenes, different scenery, and stuff like that to explain, what I experienced based on terrain and so on and so forth. And some of the stuff it's dry. I mean, if I just talk about it, you're going to be bored to death. And yeah, AI is not perfect. And I'll be the first person to tell you that. It's not. For a 1.5-minute video, all right, it took me probably 5 days of working on it for most of the day and going through and discarding probably 80% of the renderings because they didn't meet the standard. And even now there's still some mistakes in there, but it's not worth it to me to spend, the amount of time, and I'm not to the point yet where I'm so savvy at it that I know exactly what to prompt to get the result that I'm looking for. And they're minor things, like maybe the boot is maybe 1/2 inch short in one scene, and the next it's correct. But you get the idea, and that's the whole premise of me doing it, is to give you an idea or give you the story or the message in another format other than just me sitting here talking to you. But that's not going to change. You're still going to see, live videos. It's not meant to be a replacement. It also gives me an opportunity to see what AI is capable of and better learn and understand it. And I will tell you from personal experience that AI in the wrong hands is bad news. It's AI, once you start working with it, it will figure you out. And it's scary in that aspect. So I'm careful as to what I share. But there is some stuff that, because it searches the internet, and it searches for, what you're searching on the internet, what you're, and what, some misspoke words or mistyped words. And you put it in there in a question or whatnot, and it remembers that stuff. I mean, I've had AI say, well, you're asking for this, but based on your experience, this is what you've been dealing with. It is scary. So just, be careful and know that, I'm taking extra precautions to make sure that it's safe. But in no way are my videos, I'm not tracking anything or anything like that. So in case that thought entered your mind, no, I'm just using it just to create videos at this point. But yeah, I mean, it helps me forward the message in a format that is a little easier on the eyes, so to speak, and maybe a little more pleasant to listen to than me droning on about it. What's upcoming? I've run Frank's for quite some time, and I'm not tied to any one particular brand. I mean, I back them or I endorse them or whatever because they make a good boot. I've had, a misstep or two with them, but nothing that they have not handled. And now I'm working on whites, and that may seem a bit backwards to some, or it does seem backwards to some, because they're like, well, how come you didn't start with whites? They're the ones that founded, the design. Well, it just didn't work out that way for me. But in order for me to give an honest opinion on, what my thoughts are on the boots and stuff, I recognize that by me not having any nicks boots, that, I can appear biased. So that it's something that I certainly, I want to be fair. I also do genuinely want to try nicks. That everyone's doing it and they need to do it. Nix does more of it, but a lot of that stuff that they do is on an educational level. which I think is important. And I want to make sure that that I am supporting their ability to be able to further that and make inroads in that area. Anyway, beyond that, I will continue to share my experiences with y'all. We'll be doing some hiking and stuff here after a while, after a bit. Kat, my wife, is still recovering from her accident, so she hasn't been able to go with me. And I mean, I can hike by myself, but I really would prefer not to. If I can do it with her versus without. So that being said, I do appreciate y'all watching. I don't do this to make money. I don't. I just like fidgeting with stuff and educating myself on certain things and sharing my experiences with others. And that's what it comes down to. I'm not going to quit my day job, I'll tell you that much right now. So anyway, thanks for watching. If you have any questions or anything, don't hesitate to reach out. I'd be glad to answer them. And y'all have a great day.